If you're looking at the calendar, you realize it is the 3-year return, our 3-year Smack anniversary. Josh, what do you have planned for us? Josh. Not online. Not in the room. Okay, 1 second. Not answering my text from 3 hours ago. All right, Smackheads. This can only mean one thing. The Packers did not do well today, and Josh is driving up to Green Bay to give them one of his motivational speeches and forgot that we were recording. I'm going to go check on somebody real quick and see if they're free. Justin, you busy?
Hang on. Alex?
Yeah, you busy?
No, hang on. What's up, Alex?
Hey, I need you to help cover our Smack anniversary.
All right, Alex, I'm all yours.
All right, cool. Why don't you take off the operating scrubs and meet me in the room?
Got it. On my way.
All right. Okay. Listen to our friends from the Cultworthy for just a moment, and we'll be right back with you.
The Cultworthy Podcast. Join me, Antonio Palacios, each week as I guide you through a never-ending sea of obscure cinema and cult-worthy gems that deserve a rediscovery. Find me on all listening platforms and at thecultworthy.com. The Cultworthy Podcast. Join us.
All right. Justin, it has been 10 years since John Wick has come out. As we know, any time that anything is unexpectedly a success within Hollywood, that means one thing and one thing only. Copycat the shit out of it and hope you strike gold.
You mean producers putting all their money in and hoping to bank on it, so...
Of course, the most famous example from more recent times would be DC. Marvel comes out of nowhere, self-financing, doing Iron Man, and DC stumbles trying to play catch up. We were shocked. I think something like they actually had put out 17 DC movies, and not counting different cuts of their movies in the 8 years from Man of Steel forward. It was kind of shocking because they just came out so quickly within the past few years, just to be buried. If you go a little further back than that, we have The Matrix, which that was borrowing from Asian cinema, their fighting styles, but also that slow-mo bullet cam thing that everybody just started doing for a few years. You couldn't see an action movie or a comedy without them aping that slow-mo shot or trying to make everyone do these badass moves, which a lot of them ended up being just stunt doubles, kind of casually hidden with side profile shots. But 10 years ago, we got John Wick, which brought back a more grounded, especially from the shaky cam style of the Bourne movies of let's make everything, the camera cannot be still, the camera cannot hold for more than half a second. We must ensure that nobody knows who's on camera, who's doing what, but it feels intense. Just looking at some of the films that have come out since then, it doesn't seem to have hit the upper echelon of big budget movies. The Marvel movies took absolutely no notes from this. Everything is green screen to hell, edited to hell. You don't know who's on camera. Half of the fights, you don't even know who's punching what. They save everything for that comic book splash page. You get one beautiful shot every 45 seconds. If you want to do Civil War, they did 2 big ones. The airport fight sequence, boom, there's the 15 characters running at each other. There's your hero comic splash page shot. The Bucky, Captain America, Iron Man fight. Boom, you get the one good shot. Bucky and Captain America going at Iron Man together briefly. You get that shot held. The repulsor beam, the Cap's shield being held. You get a few moments, but you don't get the fluidity, the smoothness. You don't get to enjoy seeing the actors on the screen when you have a budget, say, of more than $70 million. But you do get some occasional seeds buried there that bloom into something buried in the chaff. I think the movie that I would say borrows that style the best is either the Extraction films with Chris Hemsworth, though I can't tell you a thing about their plots. He's a dude who extracts people. And then Violent Night, because god damn it, Santa kicking the shit out of people on the naughty list is fantastic.
Well, let's kind of look how we got here. I mean, you hit it the nail on the head. So Marvel has dominated the action space, and for any other studios to go all in on a $250-300 million budget, it ain't happening, because the history of action films, and I have a love-hate relationship with action films, we don't see a lot of that anymore because we don't have a lot of audience going into that if it's not a spectacle, if it's not a Marvel film, if it's not a DC film, because they want to have that experience of the CGI aspect of it. Even if we go fast forward back, every decade has a genre that just producers go all in on money on what works. The 80s had the buddy cop, the chemistry, the character drivens. The 90s had a lot of these interesting situationals like Con Air, The Rock, Under Siege, a lot of these ridiculous over-the-top aspects. Early 2000s, we had the spies with the Bournes, the Bonds, the Spy Kids, the Triple X, Spy Game, I Spy, Charlie's Angels, Johnny English. So you have all these subgenres going in all in with these producers investing money. Then Marvel came along with the superhero aspect that has all the rights, and they pump it to screens, and that's all that audiences are experiences until John Wick. And if you've listened to my reviews, Alex, we've had this discussion. I'm not a John Wick guy. I think they're okay movies. I think they're good movies, but there's a curse to them that I fall asleep with every goddamn John Wick movie because it's hypnotic to me. We get the first one, I fell asleep probably at the 40-minute mark. We get the second one, I fell asleep at probably the hour mark. The bullets flying consistently mixed in with the slow-moving dialogue that everybody has to speak their lines at the same damn pace. It's like an action film lullaby. And to be clear, they're not bad films, but the very last movie, I had to chug 2 energy drinks, I had to have a protein bar, and I said, I am not falling asleep at John Wick 4. And I stayed awake for most of it, but my eyes did get drowsy. And that one was like the longest one possible. So to me, the John Wick movies, they did add something to the action genre because that was the only thing that we really have to compare to Marvel movies. There's no action movies that are coming to theaters that are of relevance. They're all being pumped to streaming. And that's what really takes away from the experience of an action movie. Give me a good old Nicolas Cage action movie of the 90s and I'll go see it. And the closest one that's come to that is Nobody.
Nobody's such a weird one for me because I know it's from like the same creative team, and they have made like the little hints of like, oh yeah, we want to see them in the film together, and oh, you know, they wouldn't really be enemies, they'd kind of be more like friends, but they of course would have to fight. And we do get a sequel. It has taken way longer than expected, but we're gonna get a sequel next year, so it's about 4.5 years. Nobody 2 is coming out. Your boy Christopher Lloyd is coming back. Doc Brown to the rest of us.
Thank God.
Yeah. Connie Nielsen, I had a little crush on her forever. I have no idea why. It's just one of those like, oh yeah, Connie Nielsen. She's coming back as well. So it's going to be interesting. But I'm looking through some of the others films, and we got attempts with something similar with like Kate. The film Kate, another direct to Netflix, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Bruised. Halle Berry direct kind of Netflix. The Mother direct to Netflix with Jennifer Lopez. And I'm not saying there's not good movies. I just don't feel an emotional connection to them. Even Extraction, I don't feel an emotional connection. They try that very much by immediately putting like, you know, Chris Hemsworth as kind of guy down on his luck, one last job kind of thing. And of course he has to save a child. And I think that they missed the point of the John Wick films is not necessarily that there needs to be an emotional connection. To me, what works for them is that there's an emotional seed and a proper escalation of the violence as things mount against him. The closest I can come in terms of explaining this is Jackie Chan films. Jackie Chan came into cinema around the same time Bruce Lee did, so 50-something years ago, and he actually stunt doubled for Bruce Lee in one of his movies, maybe two of them, before he, in the wake of Bruce Lee passing away, for about 10 years, Jackie Chan basically did Bruce Lee movies. They had him, they basically wrote a script saying, you're going to just do Bruce Lee stuff. And then he was able to take control. He finally had enough money, enough investment with himself that he put together his own stunt team and began doing his own thing. And the way Jackie Chan explained how he does his movies is, one, you have to have the action on screen so they see it is me being hurt, me being attacked. You can't cut away to other people. I have to be the one bearing the brunt of this. And in every action scene that he does, the escalation involves, I have to be achieving a goal and they're stopping me continuously. So some of them, it's simple as, I've lost my shoe. Like the first guy I fight, my shoe gets kicked off and I'm trying to get my shoe back the entire fight. I go to it, but someone stops me. There's a ladder. I get the shoe. It's kicked out of my hand, you know. And so that's what I think with the John Wick ones is every action scene is set up so that he is being blocked from his goal and how he perseveres over it. Versus, I never felt that Santa was in trouble in Violent Night. I didn't really think that Chris Hemsworth is going to die in it. And Kate with Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I actually enjoyed the film. It didn't carry me through with an emotional core. I was just very aware that, okay, so this is a movie where they spend a lot of time working on stunts, so we're going to get these nice, long fight scenes, which the one thing that I get from them is the same thing that you do. I get exhausted. Assuming you've seen Man of Steel, right?
Oh, yeah.
That last fight between him and Zod, a 45 minutes from Smallville to Metropolis to fighting to being his head snapped, Zod's head snapped, it's exhausting. I watched it in theaters and I vaguely remember kind of enjoying it because, ooh, big, boom, bang, oh, stuff, buildings collapsing, all kinds of crap. But when I watched it at home with my wife, she said, how much more of this is there? I'm like, they hadn't even left Smallville. And so she got up and left and then came back a little while later and she's like, they're still fighting. I'm like, it's almost done. Half the city's gone.
Well, it's almost like John Wick 4 where we have that staircase scene and it just never ends. Get up the damn stairs. Just go a Rocky Balboa style and just jog up them and call it good. But here's the thing, and I think I agree with you, and I think what's really missing, well, I shouldn't say missing, I don't think it's the action. I think it's the relatability of the subtlety of the character, because here's what we get a lot in a lot of action movies, especially in the 90s, is we get this subtle character that just becomes that has Superman syndrome, that becomes this rock star at the end. Here is where we have Keanu Reeves that really progresses as a likable character. He's really subtle, but it's an earned action sequence where he's firing a gun. He's not doing necessarily kung fu the entire movie, but we're believing it because, one, we want to believe it because he's a likable character, and two, it's not over the top. And I love to kind of relate that to what we did see in the 80s with the buddy cop movies, because This was all about characters and relatability, and I'll go back to Stakeout, which is one of my favorite buddy cop movies with Richard Dreyfuss and Emilio Estevez, is we have these likable characters that are never in kind of an over-the-top situation, but when the time comes, it feels earned. And we get these action sequences that are just bullets flying across the screen, but the 80s did it better because they don't overstay their welcome. It doesn't become mentally exhausting. And I think with the John Wick films, they really did miss the boat on how they handled the John Wick character. And they really took Keanu Reeves for granted on how likable this man is. Because at times, I wanted the gunfire to stop and I wanted a laser focus on Keanu Reeves, on who this man is. And there's only so much I can really take of just hearing bullets flying for 15 minutes straight and Keanu Reeves ducking, dodging. So show me the more depth to this character. I don't care about the outside characters. I don't care about the depth of the storyline or the conspiracy of the storyline. They really should have kept it a little bit more simplistic, because that's really going to add to that rewatch value. That's really going to add to where we want to rewatch this character, because I cared nothing for the outside characters or the outside conspiracy that's going on or this world that they're trying to build. I really have never said, man, it's a rainy day. I really want to watch John Wick 3. It really hasn't happened. Because, you know what, I'll put it on at night if I need some white noise of bullets in the background where I feel like I'm living in a New York City in a alleyway. So if I need that white noise, I'll turn on John Wick. But we're missing the characters here and that relatability to actually have the audience connect to this character. Jackie Chan did it brilliantly because he was that normal guy that really did earn that crescendo of likability, then the action. So that's what's really missing in a lot of these movies, especially John Wick.
I agree with you, because when I think of the movies, I often end up going back to the first or second one. The third one and the fourth one, they have some amazing set pieces in them, but I feel like you lose who John is, especially the fourth one. The fourth one, he's gone from this man on a mission to he is a tool for Winston at this point. That's all he is. The first one, as Josh so wonderfully pointed out when we did our rewatch last week, you get Keanu Reeves acting. You get that moment of him bound in the chair where he's talking about how the other guy screwed up, that you took everything from me. And it's great. It is the core of it. And I feel like that core and that message of like, I have nothing left and now you're going to die because you took everything from me, I feel like that carried over wonderfully into the first and second movie. And then it definitely gets lost. You have to have the reminder from Angelica Houston going, like, oh, this for a puppy. It's not just a puppy, which is a fun line, but you still are losing the more hours of nonstop violence, the more you lose who John is, which oddly enough, I think there was an Office episode that was talking about the Die Hard series. That Die Hard 1 and 2, it's like John McClane. He's just a man, and he's at the wrong place, wrong time. But by the time you get to Live Free or Die Hard, he is now a superhero. He's being run over and pushed. Cars are ending up in elevator shafts. He fights a fighter jet with a semi. You start losing who the person is, which is why I think that none of these films have had franchises yet. I mean, you look at two big ones. You look at again, straight to Netflix, Six Underground, Michael Bay, Ryan Reynolds. That is aping that John Wick kind of style with the Michael Bay flair, and it didn't get a sequel. You look at Red Notice, I think it is, Dwayne Johnson, Gal Gadot, Ryan Reynolds, again, Netflix direct. They announced there's going to be a sequel, but apparently it's in development hell because Netflix isn't really interested in putting $250 million into movies and just telling people, like, do whatever you want anymore. They need substance. They need return viewership. They need Justin on a rainy day to go, Red Notice, that was a pretty darn good film. Let me put that on.
These movies are just white noise, because they expect you to put it on and that's all they care about, and just have something that sounds good in the background while you're staring at your phone. Because at the end of the day, they can have this budget, they can have these high profile names in this movie, and that will get the hook to get people to just press play. They don't care what you do 10, 15 minutes afterwards. They just want that initial watch, and they want that to actually be the aspect of the big opening week of what released to streaming. They want that headline to pull people more in. So streaming has become the idiot's guide of action movies, where they know the audience doesn't have the attention span to really care about the characters, to really have that. I'll go back to this. Fall Guy. Fall Guy was the most recent action comedy that tried something new. And was it successful? No. And the box office showed that. It hit streaming pretty damn quick. But everything else, when we see it on streaming, I would challenge a lot of audiences to say, how long were your eyes glued to the screen before you found your phone or before you had a distraction? That's what action movies have become lately, is something that just is something for a hook to get into a streaming platform. That's why you're not seeing a ton flooded into theaters as we did in the 90s, early 2000s, is because the attention spans are getting shorter and there's not a lot of creativity. Because unlike horror, and I'll go to this, the evolution of horror, where we'll go from slasher to elevated to back to slasher, it's a full cycle. We don't see that in action movies anymore because they're too scared to go back to the buddy cop, the action comedy, and Fall Guy helps support that failure, where it's going to support that we're not going to see that in the future.
Yeah, it's a good point. I guess one of my questions for you would be, do you think this is an issue with maybe like directors, that for some reason when you think of 80s films, you think of John McTiernan? He had Predator, Die Hard, Hunt for Red October. That is a trifecta of 80s bombastic, larger than life things, going from, men trapped in a jungle to a dude trapped in an air vent to Sean Connery as Russian. He kind of defined that moment. And then you talk about the buddy cop stuff of people being afraid of that. Shane Black, dear Lord, he built 20 years of a career off of Lethal Weapon 2, Last Action Hero, Long Kiss Goodnight, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Nice Guys. He understands and defines that parameter. But once you get past 1996, Nice Guys and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang didn't do shit.
They are fantastic movies, and that's the problem. People don't want good movies. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and The Nice Guys, all these buddy cop movies didn't really escalate and excite audiences. They're great movies, but they didn't have the spectacle that they come to expect on a big screen. So we have all these movies that really do get released towards the early 2000s, and that was kind of the almost leakage of the 90s going into it, where we don't have a lot of writers that are passionate about action movies. A lot of these writers are ones that have done it from the past that are pumping movies out. Writers now want substance. They want something. They want it to be relevant. They want to make a name for themselves based on a symbolic message. You do have writers that want a paycheck, but at the same time, when we go to film school or we're thinking creatively, if I'm at my keyboard, I'm not thinking of, man, how am I going to describe this setting of how this thing gets blown up? So that's not what writers are doing right now. There is a lot of passion in the world, from politics to, the way the world is working right now, to emotions, to the way kids are being raised right now. There are a lot of topics to encourage writers to write their emotions, and we're seeing that now on big screens. We're seeing a lot more independent movies hit big screens, where I walk into a theater, I see a movie I haven't even seen a trailer for, and that's a good thing. But when it comes to the action genre, that's not a good thing, because we're not making it relevant. And at the same time, studios aren't investing in that anymore, because unless it has the big name tied to it, an IP, a superhero, or it's going to guarantee a big name for some big box office dollars, apparently, it's not going to be launched on a big screen. So I think the start of the problem is a lot of these writers don't have the motivation to really pump it out of the screen because they don't see an end game by studios, and it doesn't really give them satisfaction of what they're putting on paper other than I'm desperate for a paycheck. This thing's going to be a highlighted orange/yellow explosion that going on in the sunset. That's the way I'm going to channel my creativity. And hopefully the studios like my vision of the way things go boom, because there it is.
I definitely see that as a stumbling block, because what the Extraction films are produced by the Russo brothers. They got their power off of the Marvel movies and allowed those directors to take hold and just kind of shepherded the story. But I'm trying to figure out like what I want from the action genre. I mean, I've seen so much stuff explode, you know. I have a good 40 years of, you know, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. We're halfway through the 2020s of like, if I really want to see something explode, man, there's a movie out there. I can just go, yep, that one. Okay, pretty. But I'm looking for something that has a little heart, something for me to root for the person. I don't necessarily want the person to be invincible. And I hate that feeling. And also, when I'm watching a movie and it gets a hand-to-hand fight, the second I see legs swing up around a neck to grapple them to the ground, I just go, I've seen that. I've seen that. And typically, they use it as the smaller person to the bigger person because, legs, grapple, down. And I've seen that move a thousand times. I'm not seeing, I mean, yes, you give John Wick crap, deservedly so, for how many times can he fall down those goddamn stairs, and why are those stairs so long? Why didn't he just steal a taxi and go to the top? Because he knows where he's going. He was in an intersection around the Arc de Triomphe. There were taxis hitting him actively like 2 times. He could have borrowed one and driven to the church. But I need to understand the person's journey. I can't have them be invincible. I don't like that. I enjoy the first John Wick movie because he gets stabbed in the side. The second one, he's still suffering from that stab to the side because it's literally like 20 hours later after the second film. Die Hard, you're never going to skip past the scene where he's talking to Reginald Van Johnson while ripping glass out of his feet. You know, our heroes deserve to be vulnerable to overcome. That is why I love and I like the MCU Spider-Man movies. But I go back to the first and second Spider-Man films directed by Sam Raimi. I go back to those films because Tobey Maguire bleeds in those movies. He is blown up. He's bleeding. That first one where he's fighting with the Green Goblin, there's that beautiful shot of him just getting punched in the face and just blood splatter like a Rocky movie, just across his face, dribbling down. The second one, that horrific scene of Doc Ock coming to life. And again, Tobey Maguire suffers in those films. He is still Spider-Man. And that is something that I think that the MCU has forgotten, is that Stan Lee made Spider-Man along with Steve Ditko. The two of them made Spider-Man because they were tired of adult superheroes. They wanted someone young, someone vulnerable, someone with crushing problems that wasn't solved by money, that couldn't be solved by tech or something like that. He has to be around to protect Aunt May and to struggle through high school and college. And I think the MCU movies forget that because all the violence in the MCU films is very soft. It's like, their face is scraped up and they're fine the next day kind of thing. They don't really carry their wounds with them. And the few times that we've gotten something around an emotional core in the MCU, which I will go back to time and time again, is when Thor is talking to Rocket in the ship and trying to pretend to be happy despite having lost his entire family, his brother, his mother, his father. All of it has been taken from me, the people of Asgard. That is a core I can trust and understand. And was very swiftly taken away the fourth Thor movie, which pissed me off. And that is where I think we are lost right now with action films. Is you're either going to get amazing combat that is going to be exhausting, like Attack the Block and stuff like that. I mean, technically beautiful films. What they do with their budgets is fantastic. But I don't have a hero that I'm excited about.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% because right now, even with the new Captain America coming out, I'm not excited for it. It's one of those where it's just meh. But if we take Marvel Phase 1 and look at the more successful ones, we look at Iron Man. At one point, we see this rich guy just powerless with vulnerabilities. Every Marvel character of Phase 1 that shows a little bit of human, even if we go back to Raimi's Spider-Man, the first one was okay. It was good. It was entertaining. It was a comic book movie, but it didn't really touch audiences until the second one, where we really had vulnerabilities to multiple characters. That train scene where it is probably one of the most memorable scenes out of the Spider-Man movies. And I'll even be bold and say, even with the newer Spider-Man movies, that scene sticks out because it shows a real vulnerability to the hero, where he's out being carried by the public, where he does have flaws. Every Marvel movie, to show a connection, has to show a vulnerability of the hero. And when we go into it, the last time we saw that is really the shock value of when the heroes just got the snap and they disappeared. That was almost to an extent a vulnerability because they're not there anymore. It's a vulnerability for the other heroes on how they rely on each other to actually defeat this threat. So this is what's really missing from action films when it comes to that, is that it's missing the relatability of the vulnerability. Because even if we take, I'll use this as an example, Under Siege. So you've seen Under Siege, right?
Of course, dozens of times.
So that one is one of those silly 90s movies that takes a ridiculous situation, but you have solid characters. You have Tommy Lee Jones as a villain. But that was written by Andrew Davis, who later did The Fugitive. And this is where we actually learn from it, where we can take these interesting characters and add vulnerabilities that we saw in The Fugitive with Harrison Ford. And that really does add these movies to the next level of engagement with the audience. The problem we have is that these studios are treating the theater, as using the words of Martin Scorsese, treating these as theme park rides, and that's what it's turning into. We shouldn't insult the audience and just say they want booms and bangs. They should really have an engaging experience with the characters. Indiana Jones didn't get popular because of everything that happened in the background. It was because of the character. That's what we're losing. We're undermining our theaters, and we're undermining the genre of action movies. It's almost an insult, because action movies can be good, they can be engaging if the writing is there, but they're not pumping any creativity or time into this because they're just a quick cash grab.
You reminded me of, it's like the toys that made us, and they have the movies that made us, and they did one on Die Hard, and they were talking about the script of Die Hard and how they make the action interesting. And one of the things is, every success must be met by a quick failure. John's up on the roof. He gets the people to run away from the edge of the roof because the bomb's going to go off. Success. Failure. He's now being shot at by the FBI. He needs to get off the roof. Success. He finds the fire extinguisher hose. Failure. He has to leap off the side. Success. He crashes through the window. He's now inside the building. He's safe. He's safe away from the fire. Failure. The hose is now dragging him away to his death. So he has to get it off of him. And so it's that kind of thing, is that we don't allow our heroes to fail consistently. And I'm really hoping that with the John Wick spinoff Ballerina that's coming out next year, that Ana de Armas, I think she's a brilliant actress. She was one of my favorite parts of No Time to Die because of just how happy she was to be assisting James Bond, and the elegance of her just being perky and kicking people's ass is like, I'm helping 007. This is great. I'm hoping that they allow this character, the Ballerina, to fail, that she has successes and failures. And I think this film will do very well with me. I mean, I hope it does well, because I would like to see more of the John Wick world. Josh hates me saying it, but I'll say it again. I find the world building interesting. You know very little, but you know enough to put pieces together of how the world works. Does it always make sense? No, but it makes sense within the story. I'm hoping that there is a moment within that where she has her, I'm back moment. The whole I think I'm back. That she has a moment to express sorrow and rage in depth to her character. I do not. That's something I think is missing, like the Atomic Blonde series. That is missing in Fall Guy and is missing in this other is that the characters are too superhuman. I know that I'm just there to watch them beat the shit out of stuff. I'm not there to watch them suffer and overcome.
I'm with you, and I agree. I think to play on your words, the idea is interesting. The execution is not. So, because at the same time, I can care less about the characters. By the end of John Wick 4, he is going to prevail in some way or another. There's going to be a sequel, even if he's buried 12 feet in the ground. I was just waiting for that fist to come out of the dirt and say, I'm back. And then we'll have John Wick 5 Vengeance. You have to have a vengeance in these franchises. But with Ballerina, this is one that I'll agree with you. I hope this does do well. But at the same time, if they do the world expansion and they do the same thing, only with a different character, then it is going to be an absolutely a big disappointment, because this one is in a good spot to fail. You have the Ballerina character. You have numerous directions this can go, and I really do hope they show vulnerability to this character. But at the same time, it's based on what we've seen so far. My prediction is that this is going to be a John Wick character in a ballerina costume that's just going to expand this universe. So that's my worry, and that's my prediction. And I do hope I'm wrong, because I really do want to see this franchise expand into something a little bit more interesting that really does appeal. And when I say interesting, I mean, give me some characters to actually root for, to actually care about, to actually want to follow. Keanu Reeves, I wanted to follow because it's motherfucking Keanu Reeves, and that is the only reason, because he's such a lovable, huggable, adorable man.
So as we head into next year, Ballerina will be coming out. Nobody 2 will be coming out. I haven't seen any trailers for any other like John Wick style action flicks. It's felt like a light year. I mean, if we look at this year, the only things that really popped were Deadpool 45 and Inside Out, the anxiety-ridden clone. I don't see much. I liked Fall Guy kind of, but it whiffed for me. I don't know what it was. It was there, but I didn't buy it. I mean, and we even got vulnerability from the Fall Guy. His back was hurting. He was captured once or twice. It had some cool pieces. I just didn't feel a connection to it. So, is there any action flick that's coming up that you're aware of that you're excited for?
Everything that's coming out that I can think of off the top of my head is just streaming, and it all looks generic. And I think with the Fall Guy, what was really missing on the vulnerability is that the character wasn't relatable. This one had to go to a deeper layer. This is a stuntman that already has a profession that not many people know about, they can't relate with. This one had to be almost, I hate to say it because I hate the stereotypical character, almost like a little bit more goofy, a little bit more real, a little bit more human, because Ryan Gosling's portrayal, which wasn't bad, he's doing the Ryan Gosling thing of, look at me, I'm gorgeous, and I'm a stuntman. But it really needed to speak to the average person going to a movie theater. And what I think was really the fun factor of Fall Guy was they relied heavily on the soundtrack and the music to really drive that fun factor. And it really was a distraction from the actual characters. So, but coming out, there's really nothing that, theatrical at least, that's really going to pique my interest. And I think that is kind of disappointing. And I really do hope that studios kind of wake up and go back to almost a reset that I speak so fondly of horror movies on my show. That really goes back to that reset of going back to bare bones basics. When things get too complicated, too overblown on screen, the best thing you can do is wipe the table, start fresh, and start with characters that people want to root for.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's a good note to end it on. Though I will add, there is one movie I am tentatively excited about.
Harold and the Purple Crayon.
Yes, that movie was so good. I want a sequel to that.
Fuck you, Alex.
Harold and the Aqua Crayon, something punchy, something fun. I'm hoping that the rumors are true that Sam Raimi is getting Doctor Strange 3 because of the more recent MCU films. That is the one that I think had style, that I had coherent action and wasn't afraid to go deep. I mean, by the end of that movie, Doctor Strange is inhabiting corpses and attacking. And they kept true to the character. That ending was not a fight ending. I mean, yes, he had a fight to get through there of the, like, literally death is like, what are you doing? You violated the sacred rules. But the ending was a non-superhero ending. It was a conversation and an emotional reckoning, just like the first one, which I liked that. That is the reason why I visit the Doctor Strange movies, because they are a service to the character, not a service to a plot point, and I like that.
Yeah, I mean, Raimi has a way of bringing out some fortes and character traits of what's on screen, and that's what I've always appreciated about it. That is, if there's no studio meddling on what's going on with his direction. So Raimi at his rawest can bring out a character and really kind of entertain an audience by the performances, not everything else going around the performances. And I agree. I really do wish we see more of Raimi's direction in a lot of these Marvel movies.
I agree. So I think that's a good spot to end it. I'm going to once more say it is our 3-year return Smackumentary.
It's been a ride, Alex. I appreciate you. I mean, the 3 years every week talking to you, I can't thank you enough.
Well, you know, as I say, once you have the key to my heart, you have the key to my house. And you have both, Justin.
Aww.
Now, I believe we have an 90s emotional anime congratulations clip. Ah, there it is, yes.
Congratulations! Congratulations!
Thank you.
Congratulations!
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 Congratulations.
Congratulations!
Congratulations. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Congratulations!
Congratulations.
Congratulations!
Congratulations.
Yeah, Shinji getting the goddamn robot. And here's to at least 3 more years of Smack bothering the heck out of people. Justin, tell us where we can reach you other than your operating room.
Right. When I'm on the planet Earth, you can follow me anywhere you listen to podcasts, The Movie Wire Show. You can follow me on all the socials at Movie Wire Show. You can also catch the Cultworthy Cinema Podcast and the Movie Wire Crossover Show on YouTube at Back to the Balcony.
I highly recommend it, and one day you guys will do a musical, and I will be there to enjoy it.
I think Antonio's going to have to be sedated for that, and we'll just kind of have to like move his lips, and you can do the voiceover.
This is Antonio from the Cultworthy. I can't do it good. But anyway, everyone, you can find us at tsmackpod@gmail.com for our Discord, and that's where you can email us. We're Talking Smack on most of the socials. That includes Lonnie's websites, Blue Sky, Mastodon, Tumblr probably. Wherever there is a social media, one of us is probably ignoring it. Now, I have to thank Beppo for all of our original avatars, Vitriol Studio for our Ricky avatar. And please like and subscribe. Hit that download button. Say hi to us. We're also on YouTube, and we've been doing pretty well, and I'd like to thank you all for that. It has been a fun 3 years picking back up. We have much more to come, and like I said, if Josh was not in Green Bay right now giving that emotional speech at Lambeau Field to, those 80,000 fans in those seats, he would be here. But instead, we got John. We got Justin. Talk to y'all next week.